run down the hill, Seth.
Yeah, I don't want.
Dylan is.
Rachel is.
Rachel is.
Good morning. It's Sunday and we are going on an adventure. It's wet and rainy out, so we're just going in our backyard to a close cemetery. We're going to the Marysville Cemetery, which has a lot of really cool historical information. And who do we have today?
Dylan.
Dylan and
Rachel.
Rachel and Seth. And since I get so much crap about it, Shane went and got my coffee today. Here we go. So here we are, historic Marysville City Cemetery.
Historic Marysville City Cemetery, established 1850, first city-owned cemetery west of the Rockies. This plaque was dedicated in May 15th of 1999.
What did you think? Would George like this?
So we are now at the Marysville City Cemetery, now called the Historic Marysville Cemetery. Opened in, where the first body was laid to rest in 1850. We're on the lookout for a couple of graves that I've seen on the internet. The one being the infamous, supposedly, Black Bart is buried here, who lived out the remainder of his years as Charles Wells and is buried somewhere in this cemetery.
The last time we were here, we found a cat. I mean, we didn't find a cat. The cat found us.
I like to hold you.
The cat found us and followed us around the cemetery the whole time.
Mommy, I like
So,
to hold you.
Say hi.
You're walking on an adventure. You're walking on an adventure.
Ready?
And you're walking on an adventure?
Let's see, what else are we doing, Rachel? What are we looking at?
You found George.
She's got it pointed to the
I know, just pointing it at her face.
Bye. Rachel's like, bye. Mommy.
Don't touch, don't touch.
Anyway, what I was saying is the cat found us and walked through the whole cemetery with us, so we named him George.
I picked out the wrong jacket. Mom was right.
Yeah, you did.
You guys are wearing the wrong jacket. No, I picked out the wrong jacket.
I know, that one's a little bit too small and Dylan's a little too big.
No, I mean it's cool. It's not warm.
Oh yeah, I told you.
Do jumpy jacks. Do jumpy jacks and you'll warm up. There you go. Look at Dylan. Come on, Seth, your turn.
I'd rather run than doing that.
Okay, I want you to run up there to that sign, that brown sign, and tell me what it says when I get there. Go.
Dylan, no!
So one of the things that I think is neat about the cemetery is that it's organized into categories almost. For instance, over here, there's a children's section. So there's a sign over here that says baby section. So started as baby row, sadly turned into the baby section. So as they were settling the area, as the miners were coming out, as all the folks were coming out and starting to live and settle in this area, I mean, of course, we know that the infant and child mortality rates were low. So a lot of these cemeteries, a lot of these grave sites, at least in this section, are children, and they're very old. They're very, very old. And you can see, I mean, there's some newer ones, of course, too, but most of them are very, very old. Sad. It's like an eerie sensation when there's children involved, you know. 1859, 1862.
One thing really kind of interesting to note is the cemetery has flooded several times throughout its years. The last time I believe was in 2017.
I know. Whoa. That's a flood.
Just one of the many mausoleums out here that we see. This one, I can't find any markings. But it's really cool. What do you think, Dylan?
It's cool.
Here.
You see?
J.B. McDonald. I don't know if you can see in there.
I don't know if you guys can see it in there, but there you go. There's the inside. See inside? I think so. Well, I didn't see inside. Whew.
Here, let me see the whole process. So here's another section of the cemetery. It's called Potter's Field, and I didn't recognize this one from before when we were here last. I don't think we ever made it out this far. It says the term Potter's Field is of biblical origin, a burial ground for indigent people. It is a graveyard for the unknown, unclaimed, murder victims, murderers, strangers, criminals, and paupers. About 2,000 people are buried in this pauper's graveyard.
This little plot right here?
This little plot right here, yeah. So that means there's got to be thousands of people that are unidentified, unmarked. So that's this section right here.
Mommy, I'm cold.
Over the years, several headstones have been placed in Potter's Field by family members, friends, or local organizations. In Potter's Field are the less fortunate, all with death being their only common criteria. Oh wow, that's kind of sad.
Boys.
It's just like this big open area here. Very few markers.
One of our objectives out here today is to find the grave of Black Bart. Black Bart was considered the gentleman robber, being very polite as he robbed stagecoaches here in Northern California. Born Charles Bowles in 1829. In 1849, he decided that he wanted to prospect for gold and joined the California Gold Rush, prospecting the North Fork of the American River near Sacramento. In 1867, he decided to prospect again, but this time in Idaho and Montana. And that is where he had a run-in with a couple of Wells Fargo agencies that he vowed to get revenge. He adopted the name Black Bart and proceeded to rob Wells Fargo stagecoaches at least 28 times across Northern California between 1875 and 1883.
All the graves are marked by plots and numbers and stuff, but also I think this is kind of cool that there's also these markers and like almost street names in the cemetery. This is Larch Court, and then underneath it is who, I don't know if they are the ones that put it up necessarily, but they're probably the ones that donated it. It's cool. There's ones all across the cemetery. So it's interesting. We know that this is an area that's very prone to flooding, and you can see it just as we walk through because it's been raining. It is soggy and muddy and full of water as you walk through. Obviously Rachel's loving it, but it's easy to see that it's very prone to flooding. This one's Juniper Avenue. I don't think you can see it, but over here I think this is a Masonic section of the cemetery. Almost all the markers have the sign of the Mason on it, and it's all like partitioned off by this concrete barrier wall. So I might be wrong in that, but it just seems like that's the case.
One of the really cool things about this cemetery is the people that take care of it. they find out information about those that have died and are buried here, and they come and pay tribute to them. Like, the person here must have been a fireman. The headstone is unreadable, but this is probably a lot of different firemen out here. Like, here's another thing.
All right, so this section is the Chinese part of the cemetery, and there's a marker. It says that the Chinese immigrants came to California as early as 1838, arrived in large numbers in 1849 for the gold rush. And it's interesting, you can see that these markers are very they're kind of crumbling. I don't know, they're very much falling apart, and then most of them are marked with just like one piece of a stone. And I'm sure that there's some historical significance to that. I'm not sure what it is. But then over on the side you can see, let me see if I can get closer, there's almost like a, oh, I forget what it's called, but it's like a statue, a monastery type of a thing over there. I'm gonna remember what it's called. But yeah, this is the Chinese section of the cemetery. The Japanese cemetery is this part, this portioned out part that is a Japanese public cemetery. And at the bottom, this marker says 1927. So I imagine that that's probably when this was put into place in the cemetery. So this very specific area for Japanese folks.
So over here is First Avenue. We'll walk right past these trees. This is the veterans section. Veterans of Foreign Affairs. This flagpole it's like it was dedicated May 30th, 1927. There's some really, really old gravestones out here in the veterans area. I see a Frank H. Robinson, Colonel, Spanish-American War. This is really awesome. So here lies George Hackett. He was a Wells Fargo stagecoach guard, and he was responsible for grazing Black Bart during a robbery. So his original headstone said George M. Hackett died October 11th, 1895 at age 57 years old. Messenger 20 years for Wells Fargo and Company Express. This was erected as a tribute to his valor and worth. Here is a newspaper article from the Marysville Daily Appeal, dated October 12th, 1895. A shotgun messenger, 20 years for Wells Fargo Company Express, who on many occasions made it unpleasant for robbers to overtake the treasures aboard the stagecoach. He came within an inch of putting Black Bart into everlasting sleep. This plaque was dedicated by Wells Fargo. And just to kind of, you know, bring it home, like I said, in regards to the firemen and how the volunteers out here really, you know, take care of the place, and they put little trinkets of what they did. There is a little Wells Fargo stagecoach bank. So there's another mausoleum. Looks like it was night, and it looks like they were Masons. Here.
Guess what's in there?
Go show them what's inside.
This is what it looks like inside. side. So, and this side. I don't know what this guy or girl did, but it seems like that she or he did something. And yeah. This is in there.
All right, this section is the Jewish section, which is really neat that they have this. It's almost like an entryway. I feel like it's probably significant because it doesn't extend around like a fence, but there's an entryway. There's a little placard over here that says, for information regarding this site, please contact Commission for the Preservation of Pioneer Jewish Cemeteries and Landmarks of the West. It's kind of neat. There's, again, just a sectioned off area for this Jewish community out here. And there's one marker right here by a tree. It's kind of neat.
So one more look before we leave. It's a really big cemetery. Very historic cemetery. Hey Dad, you have a hole in your dam?
Daddy, my hole in your dam.
Okay, tell me about your adventure.
It was good.
What'd you do?
Went to the graveyard.
Did you have fun? What'd you like the best? It wasn't the funnest one, but it's cold, huh?
The first thing I was probably the same. Looking at graves.
What about you, Mom? She's cold.
She's really cold. Everybody's cold. It's cold out here. So I think this was a fun one. It was a quick and easy adventure. I had a good time. What about you? What was your favorite part?
Getting back in the car.
The warm car.
See you guys next time.